Hi there. Today on Typical Books, we're going to be doing a little AuthorTube talk on writing short stories. So this is an idea of writing a short story from beginning to end. What one of my more popular processes are. Not every short story comes out the exact same. Novels are an entirely different thing. And if you're a career writer who sits down to write every day, you may not have this problem. So I don't know if this video is entirely helpful, although it may be if you've hit some stumbling blocks. If you're sitting down to write and staring at a blank screen, go and do something else. You need some inspiration, even if it is washing the dishes. Absolutely anything else. You should never sit there and look at a blank screen. You should have an idea of what you're coming to write. And when you're tackling some short stories, or just want to write your first few short stories to have something to sell, or if you just have some ideas that you want to get out and you have no intention of selling them ever, if you have too many ideas or that one thing that is just sticking in your head, this is a great way to get it out of there and on paper where it can do some work. So these are the steps that I take to make a short story. So you've got an idea, whether it is one fully formed idea, and that happens from time to time. That happened to me with Bad Shepherd. That happened to me with an as yet unpublished story that is about an abandoned island. The whole story, beginning to end, comes in as one little nut. So instead of starting at the beginning and just starting to write fully fueled by inspiration, even if I could do that, I do sit down and write a couple plot points, a beginning, middle, and end. 1 to 5 points, 3 at least, beginning, middle, and end. Now, for those that don't typically plot stories and do run on inspiration, that's great. Me too. I don't plot my stories out very fully unless I'm having a lot of trouble. And the more trouble I'm having with an idea, the more those notes grow. If it's a very simple idea like Bad Shepherd, it was literally a 3-point note, beginning, middle, and end. And I sat down and wrote first half of that one day and the second half the next day. That's about 7,000 words by the time I was done. And it did just come out very easily. Now, the story, like this Loch Ness Monster story, that was a one-day thing because it's about a 3,000 word story. It was supposed to be 1,000 words. I'm not very good at these short stories, but it was a beginning, middle, and end idea, written in point form, and then I would write in between those portions what I wanted to fill in. Now, typically, an idea will come to you in the form of scenes or a character, and there's some sort of fully formed snippet that comes along with that. Some people will say, write that down, even if they're little ideas. Ray Bradbury was really good at writing down phrases, ideas, scenes, people, like whatever, and just writing it all down. If that works for you, that's great. Then you're already, got this beat. But if you're struggling with an idea, save those. Let them gestate. Those good ideas will not go away. I think it was Stephen King had said that those good ideas will stick around. You don't need a notebook. There's other authors that don't use notebooks. If an idea is good, it is going to stick. It will stick with you. It will haunt you, actually, and it will grow. That idea will grow. So you don't have to really worry about losing those ideas. If they're good, they will stick around. Those little snippets and scenes will stay with you, and they're probably better saved, not articulated fully, until you can sit down and you're writing them in turn, because they will stay with you. You won't forget those. If you may struggle with an entry and a beginning, it's better to have that one sentence point form than nothing at all. If you're struggling with the ending, it's a good idea to have an idea of where you're going so you have that point form written out. So if you have a story where it's someone wakes up on an abandoned island, somewhere through the middle they see a creature out in the ocean, and at the very end they resolve that they're trapped on this island and begin walking into the sea to see what will eventually become of them, whether they stay trapped on this island or throw themselves at the mercy of the great ocean, whatever. So that's your beginning, middle, and end. The beginning, middle, and end of Bad Shepherd was a girl encounters a talking animal. Unbeknownst to her, it's her first demon. Somewhere in the middle, she meets several demons. So that is kind of several points, but it's like demon 1, 2, 3, 4. And at the very end, she realizes that she is some sort of lord over these demons. So it gives you a loose idea of where you're going. So sitting down and writing down just like point forms of beginning, middle, and end and then going back in and keeping those on your paper if you use paper, or on your word processor if you use electronic writing, writing in between those so you have an idea of where you're going. You'll never usually sit down and muse over the blank page. You'll have an idea of where you're going next. If that beginning, middle, or end are fairly weak, you can go ahead at this point, once you've gotten those points down, and write those scenes that are haunting you if you feel the need. It may be the very end, maybe a scene in the middle, it may be something that is intrinsic to the character, it may be the beginning. Write those out and try and keep that steam going, because it will inform those other portions of your story as you write them. This is really useful if you're prone to having head hurricanes. I had a bit of trouble writing a recent story that I'm writing for the Wicked Library, and that's not so much of a spoiler alert now because it's been basically announced. So when it was first pitched to me, there is one central idea to this story. Whatever I wanted to write, whatever anyone wants to write for this collection is up for grabs. It had to have this one single nut, though, this little idea. And a lot of submission calls are like that. Write about a carnival, write about dogs, write about an abandoned place. It's a little nut that you need to explore in your writing. I had so many ideas, so many great ideas. And the ones that stuck, I did the point form note thing. I had too many ideas in a way. So I was struggling with that, not knowing which idea to really take and run with. And this really helped me sort that idea out, because I'd have these little point form notes, and if one would stick with me better, I would try and flesh that out. If it wouldn't go where I wanted it to go, or it was having trouble characterizing, or having trouble with an ending, or trouble with the beginning, or trouble with just plotting in general, then I would move on to the next idea. So all in all, I think I wrote down 7 ideas in varying stages of completion. The shorter ones are just that, beginning, middle, and end. 3 sentences with points beside them, 3 point form sentences. The more fleshed out ones are maybe 2,000 words of one of those fleshed out. So it might have a beginning point, 1,000 words for a middle point, and a sentence that wraps it up. Or, any combination of that. So like 1 or 2 points and then 1,000 word chunk that is a scene that is the end, or something like that. But none of them were really working, and those chunks that I was writing weren't informing the other portions that I needed to flesh out. Now you could go through this in multiple passes and write your 3 points, beginning, middle, and end, and then make each one a paragraph. Then make each one 3 paragraphs and spread it out that way. That has worked with very short stories. That becomes tedious with anything over 5,000 words, though. So luckily, I did finally stumble upon an idea that grew and grew and grew. I was having some trouble with maybe, let's say if it was 5 acts, act 4, somewhere in there. So I've been fleshing that out, and now I'm going back over the entire thing to make it a little spookier and add a few nuances. And those portions that I wrote that really flowed very well, where I felt like I was on autopilot, some people would call it the zone or whatever, those are going to go back and inform portions that I may not have written so strongly. I had mentioned tools. I often use Google Docs. That's what I prefer. It's really handy if you want to just write down a quick idea. Notepads are very easy too. I'm a pencil person, so I have like a Tough Stuff refillable eraser in case I feel like erasing stuff, which is rare, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I want to keep my writing very neat too. Sometimes I just scrawl. But these are some very well-worn mechanical pencils. This is a little fancier mechanical pencil when I don't want to look like a weird school kid. But these weird school kid, cheap old mechanical pencils have served me very, very well. And they do have an eraser. I just like the Tough Stuff erasers better. But this simple notebook has served through shows of dead air and story writing. And it will have just short little notes, a little bit of mind mapping going on for some stories, but it's the same, it serves the same idea. And then I'll bring it into Google Docs, those points as fleshed out as I can get them. And it's a good way to be able to revisit and be able to write in between. A little harder on paper because you may find yourself rewriting things entirely. But with electronic, with a word processor, you can just simply write in between there. highlight and just flesh out an idea by writing it over entirely. So that's basically it. From the minute you get your head hurricane, your mind mess, your brainstorm, whatever you want to call it, take those ideas and try and get them into 3-point form notes. And that is the extent of your plotting. Then from there, take inspiration and just sit down to write. You won't need to be staring at a blank page. You'll probably get somewhere closer to your word count faster than by trying to start at the beginning and work towards these scenes in your head, or writing a scene and using up all of your energy, all your creative energy, and not allowing that scene that came to you fully formed inform the rest of the story. If you get some sort of beginning, middle, and end written down and build on that, you'll end up a lot further ahead and always be able to approach the page with something to write. So if you have a technique that flies in the face of that for writing out a short story, getting an idea onto the page where it can actually work for you, let me know in the comments. If there's any other horror writer specific YouTube programs that you watch, also let me know, because I'd like to watch them too. So thanks very much for watching, and have a nookie spooky day. Let me put my coffee down.